Part 2, The Story and the Heroes. Now that I've talked in excruciating detail about my views on Ben Affleck, I should probably start talking about the character he portrays and why I believe he was good. Matt Murdock is the son of a washed-up boxer named Jack the Devil Murdock. One day he witnesses his father doing something bad and runs off in despair. He doesn't pay attention to where he's going and runs in front of a lift. When the driver tries to swerve, the lift cuts open a barrel of chemicals which soak into Matt's eyes, blinding him. Matt and his father make each other a silent promise to never give up, and Jack begins boxing again. One night, Jack's old employer, Fallon, tells him to throw a fight. Jack refuses and is killed by Fallon's right-hand man, Wilson Fisk, who will later become the Kingpin. On that night, Matt Murdock, a scared 12-year-old, makes a promise to himself to seek justice and protect the helpless citizens of Hell's Kitchen. When he lost his sight, he gained powerful gifts in return. The waste that leaked into his eyes enhanced his other four senses tenfold, giving him strength, balance, a keen sense of smell, and the ability to hear a whisper a block away. And much like a bat, his sense of sound gave off a radar sense, making it possible for him to see. Matt grows up into Ben Affleck and uses these powers to become Daredevil. Blind lawyer by day, justice-seeking vigilante by night. He meets and falls in love with one of his most prominent love interests from the comics, Elektra, whose father is killed by Bullseye and framed for being the Kingpin. The problem is, Bullseye used one of Daredevil's weapons for the murder, so everyone, including Elektra, believes that Daredevil is the culprit. Elektra vows revenge, and now Daredevil must fight for his life if he has to clear his name and bring the real Kingpin, as well as Bullseye, to justice. The origin story in the comics is slightly different than the one in the movie. The one in the movie is based more off his origin from Spider-Man the Animated Series than anything else.
Here's the money!
I couldn't deal with the shame of what I'd seen my dad doing. It was the last thing I ever saw.
Yeah, that's almost exactly identical to what happened here. The death of Jack Murdock is taken directly from the comics. He refuses to throw a fight because Matt's in the audience and he is killed for it. Simple but effective. Now, I've stated many times that I was annoyed at the fact that in Spider-Man, a different species of spider bit Peter instead of a radioactive spider, and that his webbing was organic as opposed to being man-made. I've also made it clear my hatred for the personality changes of the characters in the X-Men series. Rogue being helpless, Cyclops having next to no personality at all, Jean Grey being a doctor, and so forth. Daredevil was the first one to get the origin and the character right. Ben Affleck plays Matt Murdock with the same attitude the character had in the comics.
Kasada! Time to give the devil his due!
Daredevil has the same powers and vulnerabilities he had in the comics, and the same substance from the comics, radioactive waste, gives him his powers in the film. The only thing they could have done better was to include Stick within the film. In Frank Miller's version of the comics, The Man Without Fear, Matt Murdock was taken in after the death of his father by a fellow blind man named Stick, who trains him to focus his remaining four senses so that he would never become a victim. Many fans, including myself, see Stick as an extremely important part of Daredevil's origins. Fans have also used his omission from the film as an excuse to dismiss the film entirely. Well, to all of those fans, here's a message.
You're an idiot.
Okay, let's just analyze why Stick wasn't in this movie. The original cut of all the footage from Matt's childhood, him getting his powers, his father dying, and so forth, was about 30 minutes, and the original cut of the film in general was 2 hours and 25 minutes. Putting Stick into this film would have added another 30 minutes to the runtime at minimum if they were to do him right. Putting him into the origin would have just been a clusterfuck. In this film, the scenes of Matt's childhood end after the death of his father, and we don't know much about what happened to him in between. If anything, Stick could have made an appearance in a sequel. I'd imagine a sequel with Daredevil and Stick fighting together with flashbacks of Stick training Matt. This film knew how to pace itself wisely, and it knew not to rush shit for the sake of a fanboy orgasm. If Stick had been in the film, it would have just worn out its welcome. People would easily pay to see a 3-hour Batman movie, a 3-hour Watchmen movie, or even a 3-hour Spider-Man movie, because these characters are popular. Daredevil isn't as popular as they are, so think about it. A 3-hour Daredevil movie?
Who would pay to see that?
I personally wouldn't mind it, just think it through is all I'm saying. Not to mention, it was 2003. Thanks to that ass munch Peter Jackson, we had enough 3-hour movies on our plate to last us a lifetime. Thanks for that, Peter. But since fans were so butthurt over this film and the absence of Stick's character, we didn't get a sequel. Oh no, we got this piece of shit instead, with Stick just railroaded into the plot of the film for absolutely no reason. You just couldn't be patient, could you bastards? Are you happy now? Anyway, enough about Stick, back to Daredevil. Not only does Ben Affleck act exactly like the character, he looks like the character. Very rarely in a comic book film will I look at a character and say, that is the hero. Perfectly realized. I did it when I saw Michael Keaton play Batman, Robert Downey Jr. play Iron Man, Edward Norton play Bruce Banner, and hell, I even did it when Hugh Jackman played Wolverine. Going into Daredevil, I had high hopes that I would do this for Affleck. This is just what I did. As far as I'm concerned, Ben Affleck is Matt Murdock. He is Daredevil. Now, I know I said earlier that it's not my place to criticize other critics, but when this guy made his list of his most hated comic book films, his reason for Daredevil making the list baffled the shit out of me.
Daredevil in the film wasn't even the one that we've come to love in the comics. In the movie, Daredevil has no problem executing criminals, while in the comics, the Daredevil has a strong sense of justice and would never just off some common thug.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Daredevil's famous tagline in the Frank Miller comics, I am judge, jury, and executioner? I'm not criticizing the guy, I'm just making a point. You know, maybe he just forgot the executioner part. Who the hell knows? I'm not a mind reader. And it's not just him. Many other fans had this complaint as well. But no one complained when Peter Parker broke that guy's hand and let him fall out a window. No one had a complaint when Batman didn't save Ra's al Ghul. Daredevil does exactly what they did. And just what was that, Batman?
I won't kill you. But I don't have to save you.
That's exactly it. Daredevil did not kill Jose Quesada. He just didn't save him. Quesada held a gun to Matt's head. Daredevil made a move. Quesada fell, broke his back, and landed on the C-train track. Now you can speculate all you want that Daredevil would have killed him anyway had he not been distracted by a train, but it still doesn't matter because regardless of whether the intent was there or not, he didn't technically kill anyone. And even if he had, I think his famous line from the comics pretty much debunks your complaints. Not to mention, Matt Murdock struggles with this throughout the film, questioning not only his morals, but his faith in religion as well.
You don't have to go it alone, Matthew. My confessional is open to you all the time. There's no keeping secrets from God, son. I tell you, Matt, you spend 30 years in one of them little boxes, there's nothing I haven't heard.
Well, let's keep it that way.
There's a scene in the film where he beats up a thug and, true to his comic book form, tells him to stay out of Hell's Kitchen. When he's done with the guy, he turns to find a small kid crying in a corner, begging Matt not to hurt him. Seeing the child scared prompts Matt to tell him that he's not the bad guy, although to the child, Daredevil is just that. This was another well-handled scene, establishing another emotional conflict for our hero, and unlike Peter Parker at the end of Spider-Man, by this film's end, Matt Murdock will actually learn something about himself as a hero. Now we get into Elektra, who turned out to cause a lot of controversy amongst fans. Her story in particular was very different from the comics. In Frank Miller's storyline, Elektra was Matt's old flame from college and was a serious troublemaker. Years later, she is an assassin and is hired by the Kingpin to kill Matt's best friend and business partner, Foggy Nelson. But when Foggy recognizes her, she decides not to go through with it. Her and Bullseye are both hired to kill Daredevil, and Bullseye kills her. She's resurrected by the Hand and sets off to kill Daredevil, only to find out that he is indeed Matt Murdock, the love of her life. I think the most accurate portrayal of this was in a short film that you can actually watch on YouTube, called Elektra, the Hand and the Devil. If you haven't seen it, I have it saved in my favorites on my YouTube channel. You should definitely check it out. For a low-budget fan film, it's pretty badass. Elektra in the movie meets Matt at a coffee shop and ends up fighting him in a playground, and all of this after Elektra is an assassin and Matt is a lawyer / Daredevil. They didn't meet up the same way they did in the comics, nor did they meet up in the same time frame. But both Affleck and Garner have a great chemistry, and the way they play off each other as these characters is spot on to how they acted in the comics. Even in this playground scene, I counted 3 lines of dialogue taken straight from the comics.
Sure you're blind?
Sure you don't want to tell me your name? Every guy have to go through all this just to find out your name?
Try asking for my number. My bodyguard is here.
Your bodyguard? If you need a bodyguard, I'm in serious trouble.
Even if how they met wasn't exactly the same, this was just as good. They meet. Matt pursues. Elektra gives him a rash of shit at first before warming up to him. Elektra fights both Bullseye and Daredevil eventually. She dies, and she even discovers Matt's true identity. Regardless of how it took place and when it took place, this shit still takes place. Everyone also seemed to have a problem with the subplot involving her father. I had no problem with this. Here's why. In the comics, Elektra has no reason to go after Daredevil other than the fact that she was hired to do it. By having her believe that Daredevil took out her father, you are giving her a legitimate reason to kill him. Using revenge as a motivation was a damn good idea, and it also gave Bullseye a reason for killing Elektra, being that in this film, it's established that the Kingpin won't just have you killed, but have your whole family killed as well. Jennifer Garner plays Elektra perfectly, displaying the same cunning, no-nonsense attitude she had in the comics.
I'm not gonna fight you.
Good. Then this'll be quick.
Then we have the side characters who help out our heroes. Foggy Nelson is the comic relief for the film, just like he was in the comics, and Jon Favreau does a great job playing him. He was perfect.
What? Are you crazy? That place is going to be crawling with people. Rich people. People who pay their legal fees with money, not with fish, or with wheels of cheese, or with sports supplies. I'm going to fill you in on a little secret, Matt. This place doesn't look like a law office, okay? It looks like the set of goddamn Sanford & Son. Every time I walk in, I'm waiting for Lamont to walk down the stairs.
Ben Urich is the investigative reporter trying to figure out the true identities of Daredevil and the Kingpin. Joe Pantoliano is great in the role. Him and Foggy have bigger parts in the director's cut, but we'll cross that bridge later.
There is no proof that your so-called Daredevil was involved, nor that he even exists. Got it?
But a side character that fans found unforgivable in this film was Karen Page, who only has 1 scene in the theatrical cut and 2 scenes in the director's cut. She was also a huge love interest for Matt in the comics, and fans were pissed to see that she was put to the side for Elektra. This movie took 1 love interest and went with it. That is not a problem. When you try to shove in multiple love interests into a comic book film, it just becomes a fucking mess. Bullshit! And I'm sorry, but when you're adapting the Frank Miller version of the comics, you have to have Elektra. You can't leave her out. No fan of the comic book is that naive. Could they have maybe used Karen Page for this film and maybe set Elektra up for a potential sequel? Absolutely. But even if you did, you would have fans rioting in the theater screaming, "Where the fuck is Elektra?" That is undeniable. I mean, adapting Frank Miller's Daredevil without Elektra would be like leaving Gwen Stacy out of the first Spider-Man movie. Okay, bad example. It would be like leaving Mystique out of Rogue's Origin. Okay, bad example again. It would be like leaving Remy LeBeau out of Rogue's Love Life. Okay, another bad example. It would be like leaving Zarathos out of the Ghost Rider Origin. You know what? Fuck it. You get the point. Marvel just sucks. Finally, we have Matt's father, Jack the Devil Murdoch, played very well by David Keith, who I do consider to be a hero in himself. He is Matt's hero. The last thing Matt saw before going blind was his father being a thug. His father was the reason Matt ran off and was blinded. Matt's father immediately gave up working for Fallon and concentrated on helping his son and being the hero Matt always knew he was. He taught Matt how to stick up for the long shots like that. Matt would not be Daredevil without his father, nor would he have his name.